What's up, y'all? Back again today with a very important video, of course. So the last time I saw you guys, I was in front of the NAACP building. I took a little trip out there to give a little statement. Some would call it a rant, but I just call it a statement, a little speech that I gave in front of the NAACP building. I want to switch gears a little bit today because, as I've told you before, my channel, I started this channel and I created this channel to get truth out and to bring people who want truth to come together. So truth sometimes is inconvenient. Truth sometimes is uncomfortable. Truth sometimes, you know, is a little ugly, to be honest. The truth is ugly sometimes. But the truth will help us grow if we embrace it and we learn how to direct it in our lives. So this is why I speak about truth, which is why a couple of my videos I speak about race. So I don't want anybody to get confused and think that I'm just some racist or someone who only speaks about race, who's so consumed with this. This is why I've made many videos that have nothing to do with race. Okay, so the video that I want to make today, I wanted to talk about the age of information, okay? And I'll explain a little bit what that is, but first I have to let you know about a couple things. So first of all, I do want to let you know that I love you guys, of course, and I embrace all of your comments. I embrace all of your questions. I embrace all of your constructive criticism. So I really enjoy talking to you guys. In this age of information, we're able to send data to each other at immense speeds. So with that being said, I just wanted to go into what the age of information is and how it relates to our life. The age of information, well, first we have to speak about periodization. We have to know what periodization is, okay? So periodization is defined as basically the distinct categorization of time periods into clusters. So for instance, a certain time period in which a determining factor pushed forward our society. This is pushed into an era. You've heard of eras before. There's many eras, there's many time periods. So some of them, let's talk about some of them. We have the space age, where the creation and the exploration of space materials, space technology was introduced, where space exploration was introduced, you know, supposedly when man walked on the moon. This is all times of the space age. We also have the, the age of enlightenment, where basically ideas were expressed through reasoning and intellectuality. So this is a distinct time period, the age of enlightenment, when culture and society was moved forward by individuals thinking reasonably and intellectually, and thus making laws on these reasons. Okay, we also have the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages was another time, another era where was a distinct time period that basically in the Dark Era was when, the Dark Ages, should I say, was a time of cultural relapse, should I say, where very little recorded history was documented. Basically, it's just a deterioration of the culture. This was considered the Dark Ages, okay? So we also have the Stone Age, we have the Bronze Age, we have the Iron Age. You know, the Flintstones were in the Stone Age, you know. So basically, these ages, or these time frames, were a culmination of society being pushed forward by the discovery and usage of these tools. So for instance, in the Bronze Age, they used mostly bronze to make weapons and pottery and whatnot. So these, as we can see, there's distinct eras of time where certain aspects of culture push society forward. So right now we're in what many would consider to be the age of information, okay? The age of information is basically a shift to an economic structure that's based on the computerization of information. So the economic structure and most of the society is pushed forward and is formed around the computerization of all information. That's the age that we're in right now. So we have to understand what this means, what this entails. First of all, we first have to make the distinction that primarily all of the other eras save for maybe the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, of course, being the introduction of industry, where machines were manufactured that produced and did the jobs that manual labor usually were responsible for. So this is where we see the cotton mill being introduced during slavery times to kind of replace the hand labor that slaves used to do with picking cotton. So aside from the Industrial Revolution, every other era basically in time has been cultivated, has been controlled, and has been mainly in the hands of human beings, aside from this now age of information, right? Because now, although humans are the programmers of these designs and of these robots and of these mechanisms, a lot of the mechanisms nowadays are artificial intelligences. A lot of these mechanisms and devices and computers are now self-reliant, in which although they have their inception in human hands, their everyday, day-to-day operation is now solely based on their own understanding. Why do I say this? I say that this is possibly a serious thing we need to look at, because us being humans, we have a natural inclination to move forward with our society. We have a natural inclination to connect. We have a natural inclination to reproduce. We have certain natural inclinations as natural beings that artificial intelligences do not possess. Consequently, if they do not possess certain natural attributes and certain natural qualities, we can then come to the conclusion that based on this, they cannot make natural decisions. They cannot be deemed natural. Okay? Why do I say this? I say, before I go into exactly what I want to say, I want you to introduce something to you called the laws of robotics. Now, the laws of robotics are a set of rules that were introduced in a fictional novel that was written by a man named Isaac Asimov. Mr. Isaac Asimov introduced a set of novels in which he spoke of a fictional set of rules that all programs or all computers or all devices, all robots had to follow. And it was 3 simple rules. The rules were as follows. Rule number 1 in this set of rules was that no computer, no device, no mechanism, no robot can harm another human being or cause harm upon another human being. The second rule being that any device, robot, mechanism, computer, or artificial intelligence has to follow, right, the orders of its programmer. It has to obey the orders of its programmer. So that's rule number 2. Again, rule number 1, it cannot harm a human. Rule number 2, it has to obey the orders of its programmer. Rule number 3 in the laws of robotics, again, these were not real rules. They were only introduced in a fictional novel. But rule number 3 was that any artificial intelligence device, computer, mechanism, or robot must protect itself at all costs, must preserve itself from being destroyed. So now when we understand these 3 laws, it's pretty simple to see and very distinctly evident to note that these 3 laws contradict and do not coincide with each other. For example, if a human programmer gave the directive to an artificial intelligence to harm a human being, his rules would not be in conjunction. On one hand, he received an order from his programmer, which he must follow due to rule number 2. But then on the other hand, his programmer told him to harm a human being, which he cannot do because that conflicts with rule number 1. So now this artificial intelligence is posed with the conundrum and the circumstance of deciding which law to follow and which law to break. Similarly, if a human being were to, for whatever reason, attempt to destroy a device, mechanism, artificial intelligence, computer, or robot, this robot would then have the conundrum to face that either he has to preserve himself, which is rule number 3, or he has to harm a human, which would break rule number 1. So you can see that these devices, which have been made to supposedly make our life better or make our life more convenient, have potentially harmful ramifications. So moving forward, I do want to let you know about some of the let's speak about some of the modern advancements in technology. Just the day-to-day every mechanisms that we use. We have a microwave that gets our food very hot very fastly. We can eat very fast. We have a television which outputs information from all around the world. We can be informed. We have a telephone which connects us to relatively, potentially any being on this planet, which we can communicate and exchange ideas. We have, let's see, the vehicle, which can transport us from one destination to the other in a very short period of time, okay? We have so many different things. We even, on our phone, we have an artificial intelligence, many of us, called Siri, okay? So these are all things that can help us, potentially, or make our lives more convenient. But at the same time, we have to look at the negative connotations that these things can potentially bring. For instance, the microwave, although it can easily prepare our food faster, it has been also linked to cases of radiation. It has also been linked, you know, to sicknesses. The telephone, which once connected us to everyone on the planet as far as communication, has now been transformed and utilized for other purposes such as purely entertainment. So many people spend 90% of the time on the phone looking at information that is not pertinent to their particular set of circumstances. Okay, so we could also see the television, like I spoke of, that one time it used to output information that can keep us informed. Now the television has been controlled by certain individuals, and the only narratives that are coming out of there are either negative and detrimental for our well-being, or they're flat out misinformation and opinions that are being given to us. Okay, so we can see that modern advances, although we're told that they are very helpful to us, we can see that without proper monitoring, that these things can ruin us. Okay, so moving forward, what else did I want to say about this? I also want to tell you guys that another thing that's potentially harmful about this particular age of information, again, the age of information is the economic and social structuring around the computerization of information. Another potentially harmful thing in this whole age of information is the digitization of information, right? Because that's what the age of information entails. It is a computerization or digitization of physical information into computer data. So we see our music is, while once was vinyl, while once was tape, while once was on a physical CD or a physical disc, now our music has been transferred or transformed into a digital scale. We have iTunes, we have Amazon and Tidal and Spotify, where these physical records or these physical things have been made into digital streaming services. We also see, let's see, money. We see physical money, which was once coin, which was once gold, which was once currency that was physical, whether it be oil, whether it be a product, whether it be a service, anything that was considered financial, which was once paper, now has become digitized to where everything's on a card, everything's on the computer. Your whole life savings can be on a screen with some numbers and a comma. Similarly, we also have photographs. Photographs which were once in our grandparents' days. Our grandparents all have in the closet the photo album, right? So the photo album she pulled out to embarrass you and to show your girlfriend when you were naked, when you were a baby, or just had cake on your face. And she had physical manifestations, physical evidence that you existed in this time that she can show to multiple people without electricity. Now those same photos have been transferred to SD cards on our phones and our computers, to where we rarely have physical proof of any of our pictures, any of our videos. Meaning that if electricity were to be turned off for some sinister reason, we would have no choice but to just lose our information. Okay? So that means our money, our music, our photos have all been made digital, are no longer physical. And again, I said if these things were to, for whatever reason, be destroyed or turned off, or you weren't able to charge them for whatever reason, you would just lose this information, potentially vital information that can change the globe. Lastly, I want to say these two things. There was a man named John Henry in folklore, an African-American man named John Henry, who supposedly, now again, this is just folklore, not supposedly a real story, but this was supposed to be a man who worked on a railroad, and he was very strong, a very strong man, and his job was to drive a metal stake or a metal pipe into a large boulders in order to put explosives in them, so that for demolition purposes. So he worked on the railroad, and he used to drive pipes into the mountaintop. He was so good at this job and so efficient that they made a machine that can also do the same task. And they gave him the feat of finishing this task before the machine. So at the end of the story, when everything's done and the spectators come to see who won, they see that John Henry indeed destroyed, or should I say, he indeed finished the task. He indeed was more effective at doing his job. He finished the job faster and more efficiently than the machine. But they also discovered that the man John Henry had died in the process. Now, we can draw a number of conclusions from this, but mainly the thing that stuck out to me was the fact that although under extreme circumstances we may be able to outperform a device, a mechanism, a robot, or a computer, at what cost would it truly be to us? Lastly, the last thing I want to tell you is this. In this age of information, there's a lot of information, right? So how do we decide what is vital to us? We have to look at our soul, our mind, our body, and our spirit, and we have to filter the information. If you're at home and you have a filtration system on your water faucet, if you have maybe a nice Brita or a very expensive filtration system on your water faucet, you understand the analogy. The information comes out like a faucet, a water from a faucet, should I say. But we understand that from the tap, although there's a lot of vital nutrients in this water, there's also a lot of fluoride, there's also a lot of bacteria, a lot of germs and chemicals that can harm us. So if we drink water straight from the tap, although we are drinking water which is beneficial to us and necessary for us, we're also consuming many negative things. This is very similar to the age of information. We have to understand that all information is not vital to us. All information will not help us to progress. But it is important to digest and accept the information that will push us forward. So similarly, I would liken that to put a filtration system on your heart, on your body, and on your mind, to where all the information that you receive is pure and is able to move you forward into the area of progression that you see fit in your life. Also understanding that our main purpose in life is connectivity, love, and righteousness. Again, I didn't want to take too much of your time, and I love you all. Please take what I said with a grain of salt and meditate on it, and hopefully it'll help you sometime in your life. I love you. Vibrate higher.